today we're starting to talk about Chapter 6, which is talking about percents. So the first thing we have to know is, what is a percent? A percent is a ratio that compares a number out of 100. So percents are always out of 100. It's the most important thing to know about percents. So I want to know the percent that is shaded of this figure. So if I want to know the percent that is shaded, I first have to know how many parts are actually shaded. So we can see that there's 3 parts that are shaded out of a total of 4 parts. So when I look at 3/4, I automatically know that that percentage is more than 50%, because 2/4 is 50%. I also know that it's less than 100% because the entire figure is not shaded. So how do I find my percent? I can set this equal to out of 100, and I can set up a proportion. Since I know percents are always out of 100, I can use a proportion to solve. 4 times 25 is 100. What do I do to the bottom? I do to the top. So a 75 out of 100 represents a 75%. So that means that 75% of this figure is shaded. So what percent is not shaded? That tells us that 25% is not shaded. 75% plus 25% make the 100%. So what if I want to also prove it? What percent is not shaded? There's 1 out of 4 parts that are not shaded, which represents the 25%. So where else are you guys seeing percentages in your lives right now? What's most important right now to most of us are our quizzes and tests. So let's say that you just took a 20-question quiz from me. And you know when you walked out of the room, you definitely got 3 wrong. So you want to know, what's my grade? So in order to find your grade, you have to know how many questions you got correct. So if you know you got 3 questions wrong, that means you had 17 correct questions out of a total of 20 questions. So you know when you look at that fraction, it's definitely more than 50%, because 10 out of 20 is 50%. So again, percents are always out of 100, so you can set up your proportion. 20 goes into 100 5 times. 17 times 5 is 85. So 85 out of 100 is an 85%. So that means you got an 85% on your last quiz. So where else are you guys seeing percents? A lot of us can see percents in sports and statistics. So let's say my basketball team played a total of 25 games. And we won 20 games. I want to know the percentage of games that I lost. So if I want to know the percentage of games I lost, I have to know how many games I actually lost. So if I won 20 games and I played 25, that means I lost 5 games out of 25 total games. So right away when I look at this fraction, I know that I can reduce this fraction by 5. So this fraction reduces to 1 out of 5. So what does that actually mean? That means that you lost 1 game for every 5 total games you played. So again, when I look at this fraction, 1 out of 5 tells me that I lost less than 50% of the games. So I can use a proportion to figure out what 1/5 is. Put it out of 100. 5 times 20 times 20, which is 20 out of 100, which is I lost 20% of my games, which then tells me that I won 80%. These are a few fractions that you should know off the top of your head. 1/4 is 25%. 1/2, 50%. 3/4, 75%. Those are a few fractions that you should definitely know off the top of your head. 4/10. This is another fraction you should know off the top of your head. Anything out of 10 is 40%. 5 out of 10, 50%, and so on. What happens if I give you a fraction that you may not think goes into 100 evenly? 7 out of 8. We know it's more than 50% but less than 100. We can still use a proportion, but we can then use our cross products. 7 times 100, 700, equals 8 times x is 8x. Then we have our equation. Divide both sides by 8. So x represents an 87.5%, which makes sense because 7/8 is close to 1 whole, which means it's close to 100%. We could also, instead of using a proportion, all fractions mean division. So we could choose to divide. 7 divided by 8. Add a decimal and a couple zeros. 8 goes into 7 0 times. Here's my decimal. 8 times 8, 64. Subtract. Bring down our 0. 8 times 7, 56. Subtract. Bring down another 0. 8 times 5, 40. Now I have my decimal, which is less than 1 whole. How do I turn 0.875 into a percent? I move the decimal twice, which makes it 87.5%.